baby. All right, here, let's talk about this. Let's talk about Taking 20, saying Pathfinder 2E, I'm out. This is a true moment in Dungeons and Dragons commentary history. Okay, now you're like, wait, Scott, what are you talking about? A true moment in Dungeons and Dragons commentary history. What the heck's Pathfinder 2E got to do with Dungeons and Dragons? Well, if you're paying attention, everything. Let's talk it through. All right, so Dungeons and Dragons commentary. It's a thing. It's a discipline, right? So just knock them off, right? You got Ginny D, you got the Dungeon Dudes, you got WebDM, you got Seth Skorkowski out there, you got the Dungeon Crafting Guy, Professor Dungeon. There's literally over 100 D&D commentators that are rolling, that have major XP to 3, like there's just a lot of major D&D commentators out there, right? Taking 20 is one of them. He's got 250,000 subs. That is no joke, right? I was connected with another Dungeons & Dragons channel for a while. They had like 125,000 subs. He passed them in a fraction of the time, like doubled their number in a fraction of the time. So Cody over at Taking 20, this dude, he is rolling. He has got some real momentum, right? Well, he just made a video that everybody's got to stand up and listen to and recognize when something real is happening, because this is real, right? So what does Cody at Taking 20 say about Pathfinder 2E? Well, he said, I quit. I'm out. I'm done with this game, right? And it was a great video. So one of the things you see in D&D commentary is when first of all, there's a ton of stuff. There's so much D&D commentary that has no significance, right? One that we just witnessed was Tasha's Cauldron of Everything comes out, and virtually every single commentator I just talked about, throws up a Tasha's Cauldron subclass tier list. Come on. All right. Yeah. So one, it's content that feeds the most monstrous players, very, very unneeded, and it's duplicated everywhere. Right. Just not great content. Really scrub content. Just the worst. Bottom of the barrel content. Right. The other thing is when you listen to D&D commentators, you're going to see shackled content, right? Right, where like a lot. If you got 100,000 plus subs, right, and you're going to try to give your opinion on a D&D book, forget it, right? You need that. Certain channels get the book early, right? Months, like weeks early, not months early, but like 2-4 weeks early, right? That is gold. When you got the book and nobody else does, and you could do content, everybody's going to flood to you first, right? So that is incredibly valuable, right? So a lot of times you cannot get real content, real opinions, real sentiment, real coverage from these bigger channels because they're shackled, right? They're shackled. They have to behave for Hasbro Gaming because they literally don't have the ability to say what they think, right? There's a big one, right? Who I think is, to give you a little bit of proof for this, there's a big channel, right? They come out and they're like, Ravnica book sucks, right? A month later, they're like, you know what? Let's redo that. Let's talk about Ravnica again. I reread the book and here's my new opinion, right? And you can insert here, somebody from WotC called me and kicked me in the left cheek, and now here's my revised opinion, right? So there's a lot of content that comes out that's shackled content, right? So you have unuseful, repetitive content. You have shackled content, right? But every now and then, somebody slips through and says what they really believe. That's why we're talking about Cody's Taking 20, talking about Pathfinder 2E and saying, I'm out, right? First of all, this video got 100,000 views in 6 days. That's some juice, man. In our community, that's content, right? Like, that is some momentum on content. So he came out and he said, listen, it's a great video. He said, so Cody comes out and he says, hey, Paizo has been nothing but nice to me. They let me in on the Starfinder launch. They send me books all the time. When I go to cons, I walk right up. They talk to me like, it ain't no joke. Like, let's talk, right? So they have treated him as a celebrity. They have given him product. They've given him product early. they have been nothing but nice to him. And he got in and he DM'd Pathfinder 2e for a year and is now saying, I'm quitting this game. I'm no longer playing it. So why is he no longer playing it? Well, the reason he is no longer playing Pathfinder 2e is he says there's an illusion of choice, right? So he says basically, if you pay attention to the book, there's a path that gives a maximum DPS, and my players are all optimal. You know, and he says it in a little bit less than this, but he's like, my players are all optimizers, so they optimize, and then once you get starting to playing the game, they do the same actions over and over and over and over, right? And we're not having fun because every player's got their maximum build, and they're all doing the same junk every single turn, right? Brilliant. Truth, right? This is truth. He's speaking the truth. Now, let's all recognize he's speaking the truth about Pathfinder 2e because he can, right? You can't speak the, like, you got 250,000 subs, you can't speak the truth about D&D 5e. Can't. You're shackled, right? You can't, right? But you can speak the truth about Pathfinder 2e, right? Now, the reason why I'm taking time to talk about this is I love this video, right? So, one, I like to see Pathfinder get kicked in the teeth. I really love it. And here's why, right? So, one, Pathfinder's the only game in history that ever outsold Dungeons & Dragons. And when they did a victory dance on what they thought was going to be D&D's grave. For a brief period during D&D 4th edition, Pathfinder outsold D&D. And when they did, they were just like, they did a victory dance on top of D&D, and it was not pretty. It was really frustrating to watch, right? So I don't like that. I do not like that Pathfinder ever outsold Dungeons & Dragons because come on. Pathfinder was a photocopy of 3.5. A lot of people literally refer to Pathfinder as D&D 3.75. Right? So if you have a copy of an original, you do not deserve to outsell the original, right? So I don't like that, right? The other issue is Pathfinder 2e shouldn't even exist, right? And the reason why is you can't give a second edition game to a game that was born because people didn't want to go to the new edition of another game. Right, so Pathfinder only existed because 3.5 went to 4.0. People hated D&D 4.0, and then they're like, let's keep playing Dungeons & Dragons with new content, which is Pathfinder 3.75, right? Which that's what they called it. It was actually Pathfinder 1e, but it was really D&D 3.75, right? So there's a lot of karma here. Like I really kind of like that Pathfinder 2e sucks. Right, like, and I'm not saying that. Cody, in a lot of additional words, is saying it. If you're quitting a game after you DM'd it for a year, right, and you got a team who's like, who was very engaged, or and he did not like that game, right? He used a lot of other words, but I think in my opinion, he was essentially saying Pathfinder sucks without being as nice as he could about it. But I loved it. I loved just seeing somebody come out and say the truth about Pathfinder, right? And the reality is, here's another one. I would like to see Pathfinder go away the dinosaur because we need those players on the D&D side, right? D&D is not even remotely where it should be from a mainstream. Our hobby is too small to be this divided, right? And so I would love to see Pathfinder just go the way of the dinosaur, sweep all those players into D&D 5e, and there's a lot of good players over there, right? And so I like that, right? Here's another thing that I love about what Cody says is I feel that what Cody says is very dyed-in-the-wool proof that optimization is fool's gold. Excuse me. So basically, if you're playing an optimized build, you are the worst player at the table. If you're playing an optimized build, and I'm just going to say it because nobody else is saying it, right? Practical optimization of characters is the worst player at the table. That's your worst, right? Because they're the ones who are going to put pressure on other people to make conformist, boring, useless builds, right? The builds that aren't built around DPS, but are actually built around narrative, right? And so this is narrative over optimization, right? And this is somebody else saying this because I say this all the time, but it's really nice to see somebody else embracing it, right? The other thing I think is really important to pay attention to with this Cody's video, this is a big one, is the power of Dungeons and Dragons. It is so hard to get outside of the orbit of Dungeons and Dragons right now. And Pathfinder's been trying for a long time, and I think they took a good shot. But the reality is nobody needs them now, right? And if Pathfinder 1E, it's life, it's pulled off of life support, right? And they launched Pathfinder 2E, bold move. It failed. Call it with Cody's announcement, right? He gave it a good shot. He tried hard. I think he's 100% right. It's an illusion of choice. Now, one thing. Now, and here's the thing. All hail 5e. That's it, right? Like, this is calling it, right? Because in fact, I'm not sure anybody's bigger than Cody. Is there anybody else? Well, of course, Matt Mercer, right? Yes, of course, Critter. So I don't even consider him. Matthew Mercer, is he a D&D commentator? I don't know. He's more like a Hollywood person who's playing D&D. That's So yes, Matthew Mercer is bigger. Outside of Mercer, I'm not sure anybody's bigger than Taking20, right? 250,000 subs. That's huge, right? And if there are somebody that's got more subs than that, just point me to them. I'll watch them. So it's impressive. It's really impressive, and I think it's really important that he brought this forward. He was very honest about the game. It's just really fascinating what he's saying. And one thing everybody needs to watch is be aware of is if you make a TTRPG, you are going to be making content for 5e or you're going to be broke, period. Right? Perfect example of this is Monty Cook. Monty Cook's Numenera, they have this thing called Arcana of the Ancients. They're like, oh, you know what? Arcana, you know what Arcana of the Ancients is? It's Monty Cook going, I actually was on the Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition design team, and then I broke off and said I didn't want to be part of that and made my own company, and now my company makes content that is compatible with 5e. And Mike Merles hasn't opened a book I've made since I left. 5e wins. D&D wins. And we, as a community, really need to look at this and say, okay, if we're going to take this hobby all the way, nobody can be against the flagship, right? We've got to unify as a community if the hobby's going to move forward. Because none of these other games have the juice to get outside of its orbit. And Pathfinder 2E made a bold try, but Kobe was like, I can't play this anymore. It's unplayable, right? It's essentially what he was saying, in my opinion. If you ain't watched that video, check it out. It's incredible. And also, I'm calling it all hail 5e, man. The community's got to get around the flagship. That's where we're at. Do you think I'm wrong? Let me know in the comments below. Do you think I'm right? Let me know that too. What's your thoughts? What did you think of Cody's video? What's your opinion on Pathfinder 2e? Do you think there's ever going to be a game that's going to be able to outsell D&D again? I'm not sure there is, right? We'll see. I'd love to hear your thoughts below. Thank you very much. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.